Good morning. Happy St. Patrick's Day for those getting up in the wee hours of the morning like me. Tony Caravan with you for what may be part one of an extravaganza, but we'll just have to wait to see.
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, not what you don't.
Just drinking caffeine at this point. The question is whether or not we're going to do one of those marathon broadcasts like we've done before.
Good morning.
Good morning. You can tell by my voice that I have not been up that very long. I'm wearing the green. And, of course, Erin go Bragh. So, yesterday was a pretty good show, I thought. I haven't pulled this shirt out since last year, and it's like, I still haven't gotten over that Thanksgiving through New Year's, extra. I put on about 10 or 15 pounds. But, that's just my vanity, and I was waking up today and all I kept thinking about is, I shake hands with your Uncle Mike, me boy. Say hello to your sister Kate. I don't know. And about the Garden Gate. The morning show mugs, for those who haven't tuned in yesterday, I highly recommend you look at yesterday's show. I have got to figure out a way to organize my YouTube channel because I just don't seem to be able to get it. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to be getting a broad enough audience, through YouTube. So pardon me while I adjust my window. It's a beautiful day. It's 6:24 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's pretty darn early, considering we just recently went through daylight saving times and we spring ahead. So, some people still have a problem with that adjustment of the hour. So it's like 5:25. But it's all the way, it's all perception, Is there time? Is there time? Will I be able to play Irish drinking songs later? That is the question. And will I do that? And will I risk a strike? Strike 3 and you're out. I don't have any strikes. I've gotten plenty of copyright restrictions. This is the morning show. We're just talking. I've got my shamrock hat on. And I thought that, for a more realistic view of things, like I say, sometimes this stuff, you want to see like the studio. Sometimes you get a better idea. So you don't realize people think I'm some like giant Andre the Giant or something. But as you can see, I'm just a muscle man. Anyway, that's the room. This is the close-up. And when you do the close-up, everything is like that. And that's my vanity. Behind the Garden Gate, there used to be, I went to a grade school. It was called St. Patrick's grade school. And of course, we had St. Patrick's Church. And I went to a high school that basically had the Notre Dame fight song as our as our alma mater. So I have all these, all these things floating through my head on St. Patrick's Day. But I grew up at a time where I actually remember there was a guy in my class who still said H, like in HARRI, GAN spells Harrigan. But he used to say H in, I don't know, like third grade or four. I still remember that. And I remember the nun trying to, ask him to spell something, and some long word or something. And he would go, H. And actually the nun ended up cracking up, but I mean, it was basically an Irish school. I mean, it was St. Patrick's school, so so I grew up that way. And so to me, to some people, St. Patrick's Day is, just another day. And I guess before the lockdown, to people, it was kind of like the second amateur night out. The first amateur night out is New Year's Eve. People who just don't have, aren't regular bar goers or drinkers. And the second one was always St. Patrick's Day, and if people and green beer and stuff like that instead of, but for the rest of us, it was always quite a holiday. And I don't know if I told these stories, and I may have told these stories years ago. It's a Tony Caravan live show. I'm just winging it today, folks. We'll get into some stuff, but I just just tell a few tales of yore to begin this thing. But I could remember when you really when before all of not just before all the social distancing and all this stuff that's happened. It seems like it's been forever, but it's been 1 year. It's hard to believe. It's like we just came up on the anniversary of what was it, 2 weeks to flatten the curve or something like that. Anyway, let's not get into that kind of criticism. And I you would go to these places, and there was a particular bar in my college town, I remember, quite frankly. But wherever I went, I was sure to be found at the Irish pub. But there was a real authentic, when I say authentic Irish pub, it was owned by a family that a fairly big family, a good Irish family that had like I think they had 3 daughters, and they played people, listening to this, the odds of somebody knowing what I'm talking about are very slight. But if you do, you're going to know exactly where and who I'm talking about. And this wasn't in my hometown. This was like and every Saturday night they used to go on. They had a little stage in there, and normally, and they would have they would just have, there would be bands playing in there. But it was it was one of those type of bars it was under, you went downstairs, so it was underground, and they had these big, thick wooden tables, and people had carved in things there. And this was a college town, so, basically going way back, right? And it was a tradition, and you could carve in those tables, and it didn't matter. And you'd sit there with, and it was like, in that sense, it was that, real camaraderie, because it was, well, in one way, almost like a Bavarian festival atmosphere, in a sense, only in this, not, I mean, it was pure Irish, but only in the sense that, the long table. So when you went down there, you didn't know who you were going to sit next to and who you were going to sit across the table from. because they were just like a lot of long tables like that. I mean, I think there were a couple of little booths towards one side, maybe on the stage side, but place I used to hang out on the other side was just like these long tables, and it was fun. And that's how you got to know people and hang out, and meet people, and end up going home with someone, But they played on Saturday night. This family took to the stage because it was the owner and his daughters and maybe one of his sons or something. I forget the whole thing. This is a long time ago for me. And they had banjos, and it was like all the classic songs, so that most people don't know, you know. And but it's like, everything from she's the daughter of Rosie O'Grady, a genuine, that kind of stuff. But I mean, a lot of with the banjo things, it was a lot of upbeat and just fun and sing along thing. And even though it was a college town, and the average age in there was like, tw- people in their early 20s, and or if somebody who got in with the fake ID. The morning show mugs. It tastes better in a morning show mug. That everyone got into it, different times, different times. I mean, just on a quick tangent, flash ahead to another Irish pub a friend of mine owns, which I wish I could go to today, but I think I mentioned yesterday, I don't have a car, and the practicality of me getting there, and and then lodging, and then getting home and stuff is just, and the thing's only 45 minutes away, but there's just no transportation. There's no like, you can't even get a bus, But I can remember at his place, um, that one time I was sitting at the bar, and I was playing the jukebox, and I was playing some classic uh old traditional Irish tunes. And somewhere in the mix of there might have been, uh, because I just found anything I could, I just went through the jukebox, and because the jukebox now are like cloud based, so you could just dig and dig and dig. So I don't know how much money I put in the thing because nobody else was doing it. There was other music. I walked in, it was St. Patrick's Day, and there was like some weird music playing. It wasn't Irish music. So I went in there and I played some of the classic and a lot of the upbeat stuff, things that I'll get a hit for. Um, but I think I have one here. Let's see if I put it over here. Well, I have it here, but I'll definitely, that kind of stuff. Now I know that's just playing a second of that. I'll probably get a hit, copyright hit. It's ridiculous. You can't, I mean, come on. No fun allowed. What's up with that? But so anyway, I went over and I played most of the stuff I played was upbeat like that, good stuff. But somewhere in there, I found like, "Oh, Danny boy," and and I'm sitting at this, the back pub, this bar. They had like 3 different bars in this place, and I was sitting at this little back pub. It was my favorite, like, little spot. And in other words, people here, there's people, I'm here, there's people on this side, there's people on this side, and then the bartender and the coolers or whatever, and the shelf stuff is back there. And and for the most part, I mean, anybody throughout the building, I think, and I didn't, nobody knew that I was the guy that put on, a couple hours worth of the Irish music. But there was like one or two people, a couple of people at the thing when they heard like, "Oh, Danny boy" and stuff, and they were like freaking out. And thankfully, it was great to see that it was a 20 something girl who basically, said, just looked at the guy and told him off. Because they was expecting to hear like rap or dance or pop music, country music, I don't know what, but she said, she said it, and I can't remember how she said it, but it was eloquent, right to the point, shut the guy up, right to the point. Hey, it's St. Patrick's Day, and we're listening to Irish music, and and that includes, you know the slow songs are going to come in too. And so you're going to hear a Danny Boy because, that's part of it. And a little story. But I started out talking about this other place, right? I was just a sidetrack. But in this place where we all got together down in the basement, uh well, it says net on the live now, so I thought that might have been they already got me with the strike for playing that Celtic drinking song. But it was like the whole concept, the "Kiss Me, I'm Irish" type thing. I can remember as the day progressed, I'd be standing over by the stage watching the girls play the banjos and listening and just getting into leaning against the wall and just, half pissed, as they say, with my pint in my hand. And these beautiful girls passing by and just reaching out, grabbing them and kissing them, right? And I always tell this story to people. There was one girl, and to people today, that would be like, oh my God. You know what I mean? Right. But that's just the way it was. And but to this very day, I still remember there was one particular girl that just passing by and looked at each other, and I kind of reached out and she moved toward me. I mean, it was consensual. I mean, this is the way it was. It was St. Patrick's Day. I mean, and I'm just a brief little makeout session, there, me leaning against the wall. And that was like one of those like whammy kisses, right? That I remembered like my whole life, and I mean, I've had some great kisses over the decades. And I'm not saying that was the best kiss of all the women I've ever known, but it was a memorable kiss by a girl I just happened to pass by me on St. Patrick's Day, and kiss me, I'm Irish. And I still remember, and I still can almost remember the girl's face, but I have no idea who she is, never saw her again, whatever. And that tradition, which is really sad, the kiss me, I'm Irish thing now is just like, I don't know. They turn these things into like consumer holidays, buy these things. It's like Halloween or something to the average person if they don't know. And yeah, it was just great. I mean, it was just, I don't know. It was just an overall, I talk about our senses, and that life, the people who are confused about life is that they just don't understand, get involved in the five senses and human, you know, intentions, human creativity, human, I don't know, just human fun, because I mean, even that creativity is the idea of the music, the whole, I don't know. But that's what, it's things like that make life worth living. And it's things like that really, that their memories, their experiences, um, it's it. And it seems that this, you know, corporatocracy and the way people are today, they they they're just stealing all of that stuff from people. And really what's left? I mean, it's one thing to be cautiously, you know, concerned about, catching a flu or, spreading germs and stuff like that, but I grew up in a family that was like, and most people I knew were, that we were all basically clean to begin with, I mean, our, our mothers taught us to, wash our hands, brush our teeth, you took a shower, you wore clean underwear. Don't go out the house without clean underwear in case you get into an accident. That whole thing, not like an accident, but the whole idea. What a horrific thing. I remember I can't take credit for that, making fun of that one, because that was some comics somewhere I saw one time said that. But the idea is that, it's like, you know, it's like even me here where I overuse this, I'm constantly using this handkerchief, and that's like a thing. It's like my nose isn't running. I'm just cleaning off my mustache. But it's like the idea is I always had a handkerchief, and Christmas I used to, you know, there'd always be, under a Christmas tree, there'd be one of those softer packet, some packages. And in it, of course, would be like a 3-pack of handkerchiefs. I mean, that's just the thing. And a lot of, so, it's not as if we didn't practice good hygiene. And when someone caught, was sick, it wasn't as if they didn't stay home from school or stay home from work. You had the common sense to do that. And the idea that now, that they, have done this, and I just hope it's over, right? So let's just, a toast to that. I mean, to this thing ending sometime within the next month or two. Though I heard something yesterday on just flipping around YouTube or something like that, and somebody was saying that they want to keep this thing, that there was a speech. See, I won't watch speeches. I'm done with politics. I'm done with politics. Absolutely finished. I criticize the absurdity of politics. I talk about the corporatocracy. I talk about how Western civilization has fallen and stuff like that. But it's like, no, my life is, I want to have fun, the beauty of nature. All right. The reminiscent and making new memories, and using my senses to experience the beauty of this world. And, but apparently a speech was made by a certain individual who has memory problems. And in that speech, which I did not watch, but this was someone referring to it, and said that, and I guess, upset about it, that apparently a statement was made, something to the effect of that, well, if everyone does as they are told, paraphrasing, this whole idea that we are now back to the king system, or we're all under the control of this, the ruling elite somehow. Do this, don't do that, whatever, that maybe by Independence Day, July 4th, you'll be able to get together with some family members in your backyard and have a barbecue or something. Like, oh, that's great. So how about 100 of us getting together in an Irish pub? Packed in like sardines, That's what I want. Or that's what I would want. And that's what someone in their 20s is missing. That's how you met people, These poor bastards aren't going to know what it's like to have a whammy kiss like I described. Man, Anyway.
Here's what's happening.
But I don't want to get on a downer on that. I'm thinking, if you recall, people who've been following me, and I'm going to try to better organize this channel so that see, what happens is on YouTube itself, I don't know why, but there's not an awful lot of exposure, and so I'm debating on whether or not I might have a marathon session like I did before. So I might bring out the Guinness later on today, make it, make a half and half, um, and and just do a couple hour marathon St. Patrick's Day live broadcast. I'm still mulling that over in my head. So we'll see what happens. I mean, the first one I did was 5 hours, and it's up. It's still up there. You could find that one. But then I did and then I broke the record, and it was a 6 hour long marathon on live drinking session. It definitely, I beat Tom Green. Tom, the whole inspiration for me even doing the first one was when I had heard that Tom Green had gone live and was, had a few drinks or something, and he fell asleep live, while he was live, you know. And and I didn't see the whole show, but I mean, there's a picture of him, and he's like, he passed out live. Now, some people think this isn't funny, but you know what? It is funny. For some of us, we enjoy life. We're responsible, but that doesn't mean we can't, within the confines of responsibility and morals and ethics and all of that, there's still, we can have a few holidays and we can have some fun. But ended up going 6 hours. And by the end of it, it's not up now. They literally, they blocked it. They took it down. It was up for a short period of time, and they took it down. And the reason they took it down was because towards the end, and believe me, I was like slurring my voice a little bit towards the end. My eyes were like, half open, I think. I mean, 6 hours, I was drinking 6 hours on air live, And towards the end, I started playing a few, songs, just some music, and they were just cuts. It wasn't like I was playing the whole track. It's like the show's over. I passed the 6 hour point. I'm going, this has got to be a Guinness World's Record, right? And so I was just like in that, 6 hours. I was party mode, and I was just playing some classic some classic rock songs actually. And it was just feeling good because I got the headphones on. The music comes out of this thing over here, from this stand, from this machine. And I just put in some things, and I was partying a little bit. And so, apparently the jig is one thing, because I don't think they know where that comes from, at least so far, because I played it yesterday. But I got hit up. I might have played 5 tracks, and I got hit up with these copyright, not strikes, hits, or whatever, copyright claims or whatever. It's like, yeah, okay, it's a copyright claim, but like I say, I repeat this all the time. YouTube should be paying the royalties. I should be able to play any kind of song, and then the royalty money should go to those artists. See, I'm all for it, because I have like 50 songs. I mean, so let's see, back here, I wasn't going to get into doing any of this kind of thing today, but I mean, of course we have the old, Tony Caravan, the essential beat poetry of Tony Caravan CD. They give me a copyright strike on my own music. And the thing is, I'm registered with, BMI, which is like a broad, if you're a publisher, publishing companies, or somebody who, writes a song, you go through BMI. They manage the royalties, that sort of thing. The rights, they're a rights company, I don't know, whatever they are, But so, I'm registered with that, and I was a guy who managed radio stations, and been involved in radio since I was a kid, really. So I know all about that. You paid royalties. And I've told this before, even in the 90s, when I was doing these kinds of broadcasts, before any of this stuff even was a glimmer in the eye of anybody alive right now, In fact, I wonder if they got their ideas from me. Morning Joe Muggs. And I had to pay, I was paying BMI Royal, I was paying them for the song for every year. I would pay them a fee. They had set up an internet fee. It was like a standard fee. I don't know, it was $500 a year or something like that, because they saw this new burgeoning, thing and a chance for artists to, to get revenue. You don't make much on royalties. It's not a lot. I mean, the individual artist, a guy like me, it's in the pennies. But that's not the point. The point is people like YouTube should be paying into it. And so I should be able to play whatever I want to. So they're depriving the artist of royalties. Meanwhile, they're making billions of dollars. And I don't see anybody questioning and challenging that. And that's the problem we have in with big tech right now, and this recurring corporatocracy that I refer to, is that they just, they appear before these congressional hearings or whatever, and yes sir, we'll take care of that, we'll do that, and we're going to do this. But these congressmen are clueless people. They're nobodies. They have they don't live life, right? They're like these groomed individuals, right? That, have gone through, there's a whole process, of grooming a politician. And so they get there, and some of them may even have a law degree or something like that. It's not like I'm not saying that they're morons, but the idea is that they have no real world, real life experience. They don't understand that. And, so that's a tragedy, and so that's why I'm saying I'm mulling this over my head, because I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to do a marathon, St. Patrick's show, in maybe, I don't know, it's 6:54, so say it's 7:00, 3 or 4 hours from now. Because I would, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to start early. I'm not going to do it late. Kind of get people in the mood who are going out later on tonight. I've always been pretty much an early drinker, though, I mean, except when I was really, really young. But then I would still be the guy who went out. I'd be the guy who'd go to the bar early, and I would be like one of the last guys to come home. Because I was born that way. I was born in the coal region, and that was, like I said, I went to St. Patrick's grade school, grew up with people whose, parents or grandparents were the Molly Maguires. They used to have the the Ancient Order of Hibernians, if people know what I'm talking about. And so, we, that's just part of our culture. Drinking was part of the culture growing up in that environment. And, your body is used to it. And that's just the way it was. And that's how we had fun. That was our social gatherings. Some people have social gatherings, in a church. Some people have social gatherings, playing sporting events. I mean, to each their own, and I'm for that. Live and let live, do what you do whatever you do, but experience life and live life to the fullest, the best you can. Don't infringe on anyone else's life, their world, their property, or anything of that sort. But at the same time, no one has the right to infringe on you and yours. So yeah, that's the thing that's going on in my mind right now. And I have a friend, like I said, I wish I could go up to that pub, but then again, I'm not even sure that because they had this thing. There's a pub up the street here, and I was talking to him the last time. That's where I'll buy I'll go in there and buy a 12-pack or something from him. And it's great. That guy opens at 7 a.m. in the morning. He's an 80-year-old guy. I guess he's had that place his whole time. And but I was talking to him, and and he was complaining that because I don't, like I said, I don't watch TV anymore because I got rid of I had direct TV, got rid of it, got tired of the commercials, the nonsense. All TV is used car salesmen, using politics as content to sell used cars and pharmaceuticals that eventually, as I say, then a year later, the lawyers are on TV telling you that pharmaceutical is no good for you. But I was talking to this 80-year-old guy who owns this place, and he said, like at that time, and I don't know if they changed it. And this was just a couple of weeks ago. People weren't allowed to sit or stand at the bar, but they could sit at a table, like by themselves. And there was some guy sitting at the back of a table. I think the bar opens early because there's still in this town where I'm at, there are still people that have like second and third shifts, or swing shifts. I don't know, the terminology for that. Like somebody who works at the hospital, if anyone who's unfortunately been at the hospital like me, is that you'll notice that there'll be a changeover at like 3 or 4 or something in the morning, or sometimes 6. And so remember, if your job is that if you get off at work at 6 a.m. or something like that, well, it's the same as getting off work at 5 p.m., right? You're going to go and you're going to go and want to grab something to eat, or maybe grab a beer and unwind or something like that. So these bars, these old bars, that whole culture, that's fading now because you don't really, as the factories and all that have closed down, or at least they don't run like 2 or 3 shifts that way anymore. Though they could well, if America would produce its own products instead of this stuff, everything coming from China. But yeah, could you imagine that? So I guess the idea is that there really is no motivation, at least in the region I'm in at this point, that these party poopers, no fun allowed. So what good is it to go to a bar if you can't like sit at the bar or stand at the bar and belly up to the bar, so to speak. Especially drinking alcohol. I touched on that yesterday. It's like, alcohol kills kills all the germs. I don't care what you're talking about. It's like you are very unlikely, I mean, just think of it. They give you a shot, they put alcohol. Now, granted, it's like 70%, alcohol, but some good Scotch whiskeys up there, in alcohol content too. So, a shot of Scotch, or a sip of Scotch, good Scotch, or a shot of something else, and drinking voluminous amounts of beer, is basically your mouth is is germ free. Is the way I look at it. Germ free, right? What's going to live within that alcohol, environment? Nothing, But that's what I say. These politicians and these people making these laws, they just don't live. They never lived, or they forget, or they don't care because now they're all multimillionaires and they live these ridiculous lives, and they're allowed to go to these restaurants and bars and stuff and sit around or whatever. No fun allowed. No fun allowed. So I just don't get it, I don't how we ever got to this point, to me, is just it's really sad. So I'm just pulling up the click on the weather here. It's looking like today in the mid-Atlantic states, it's going to get up to the 50s, though Tomorrow there's 100% chance of rain. I have a leaky roof. I have a leaky roof. That means what I really should be doing today is taking some caulk up into my attic and like dealing with that. But that's highly doubtful that I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Let's get this show on the road.
All right, so we're 40 minutes into this thing, and what have we? What have we done? We've just talked about nothing. But that's that's part of that's part of the Tony Caravan live show. It's we just talk about life, and it's the idea today. I think, and I don't mean today as in just St. Patrick's Day. I mean today in general. Life in general. I've got to get a new chair too. By the way, this thing is so darn uncomfortable. But yeah. Why are people so unhappy? I mean, apart from the obvious thing that in the past year they've been, restricted. But it's more than that. It's like over the past several years or the past decade or the past decades, it's like one thing after another. It's like, no fun allowed, the restrictions of freedom by as if we're living back in feudal times. It's like that the king system is returned. And people forget, the Revolutionary War and all of that. Like the whole idea was we fought against the king system for freedom. I'll tell you, William Wallace wouldn't be too happy right now. As far as social distancing and wearing a mask. It's crazy. But this is the morning show, and that's that. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm leaning towards it. I may do it. There's this possibility that if you get blocked, like they did, they literally took it down. That if you get blocked and then you just delete the video, that then you can't get a strike. I think the strike comes from when you challenge it, or do I go the route of playing Irish music, drinking, and having this on-air St. Patrick's Day party and getting strike one, right? Do I, considering it's like 3 strikes and you're out, do I just get strike one? But does that, is that by doing that, does that open you up, to some scrutiny from an algorithm to where, they said that, they're thinking, okay, we've got to keep an eye on this, the all-seeing eye's got to keep an eye on this lad. And, we don't want him rabble-rousing and getting people all excited or drawing attention to the idea of that somebody's not paying their royalties to BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC, and the artists aren't getting their fair share of money. Because the whole idea of writing a song is that you hope people listen to it, right? To a widest audience as possible. So what is this? This is a medium, a broadcast medium. I mean, tell me, I don't even understand what the excuse would be. And, I'm sure there's some, they've got 17 lawyers who wrote these terms of service things that have somehow have this justified through some kind of legalese, right? Paragraph C, section 2, whatever, you know, but I don't care about that. That doesn't, that's meaningless. I mean, some things are just obvious. Some things are just obvious. Some infringement, it's like infringements on freedom, you know. I don't care what you say, what your excuse is, it's an infringement on freedom. People have the right, or we thought we had the right to do whatever we wanted, as long as we didn't infringe on somebody else's rights. And I keep hearing these people, they'll bring up this idea of, well, by you not abiding by this edict, you put someone else at risk. And I don't, it's like, I don't think so. Like I said, the way most of us were raised, that, we were raised to be, we had health habits. Used to be like, that was a thing in your report card in grade school. I don't even know if they do any of that stuff anymore, because I don't have kids. I was married twice, divorced twice, and in between, before, in between, and after, I don't know, I had another half dozen fairly long relationships, or I lived with somebody or something like that. But we never did I never got to the point of settling down, because I was moving around, settling down to where, the idea of having a family, you know, would have, just came up. Uh, sometimes sometimes when I ponder that, like anyone could look back and say, there was that certain girl that, I probably could have settled down with, and lived a different life. But then those who know me, the idea of, then I never would have traveled, across both oceans. I never would have been in most of the states. I never would have lived in Malibu and New York and DC and Philly and south down Florida, and and traveled all over. I wouldn't have had that life to where I managed to be at the places where things were happening, that type of thing. So moved around too much, to my own detriment in that regard. But then at the same time, the reason I was able to write 10 books and 50 songs is because of my travels, and moving around. So I can't speak to that aspect of it, because I don't, but yeah, I feel sorry for people that, I almost lost my trend of thought there, because I was talking about not having a family. Um, and I forget why I brought that up, as if, uh, well, it slipped my mind completely. So let's not. What I find these days is
Good morning.
just good morning, and it'll come back to me at some point in time, even if it's,
He went forward to another time, 1,000 years from now.
something like that, So I don't know. I just don't know. So I've decided that in the coming shows, I'm probably going to focus, more on the issues affecting people, on an everyday basis, as opposed to, the rants necessary. I mean, I'm sure I'll rant because I'm a ranter, you know, but I'm not going to get so concerned with, the system, the repetitiveness of criticizing the system. I mean, most people understand In today's show, I think we just keep this morning show. I'm just going to keep this to about an hour. So, which gives me about, this is the 10-minute warning. I've got my caffeinated drink coming up on 50 minutes of broadcasting time. So the idea is that, I'll continue to criticize the corporatocracy and try to get that, jackhammered into people's brains. It's like people don't, they really don't understand that. There's just too many people that believe, where I put the government down here at the lowest level of society, that they're owned by the corporatocracy, and that people have this, worship. This is the recurring theme, and this will continue to be a recurring theme on the morning show with Tony C. But you need to understand that, and so there's two ideas that I think that we will explore and expand upon and figure out, how, and the idea is that, one, acceptance that the corporatocracy are the puppeteers pulling the marionettes that includes every aspect of elected officials. All right. The bureaucracy's in between, but they're controlled by the corporatocracy too. And the corporatocracy doesn't need the bureaucracy anymore. And that's part of, like I was talking about, this weird unholy alliance, the unholy trinity, where you have the corporatocracy at the top, you have the bureaucrats and spy agencies on one side, and then you've got what I call the communist Chinese, who are trying to take over and become the global power right now, which there's no focus on. I mean, I saw some headline yesterday where it actually said Russia and Iran interfered in the 2020 election. Right. This propaganda pushing this, the Russia nonsense. When China, 1.5 billion Chinese, controlled by the Communist Chinese Party, that actually has 21st century concentration camps, all right, harvesting human organs, the squashed freedom in Hong Kong, right? Stealing intellectual property from the US, disappearing their own people, right? I mean, it's like, it's like the early part of the 20th century. I mean, they're at that level of evil, as as it says. And so I will push that to get that jackhammered into your brain, in future shows as we continue these things. And so, because you have to know, it's like you understand the rules of the game. Game's a horrible word to say, but it's the game of life. It is a game, and there are rules, and there are players, and you're a part of that, and you have to know what those rules of the game are. And when I say rules of the game, I don't mean terms of service or some kind of like ridiculous, lobbyists sliding things into bills in Congress. No, those aren't the rules. That's nothing. That's nonsense. Okay. The rules of the game is understanding what the power structure is. All right. And how you can live within that and find and somehow detach yourself, or I say limit your exposure as best as possible to those powers that be. And then at the same time, realizing yourself with looking at life, because these things are hand in hand. And the idea is that understanding that you have these five senses and this consciousness and this human creativity and your ability to survive and thrive, because there's too many people out there that just talk about, when they get into discussions like this, they talk about surviving, or that kind of stuff. But who the heck wants to just survive, right? Excuse me. I don't want to survive. That's like we warehouse our senior citizens in nursing homes and care facilities. Who wants to just survive? What kind of life is that? Warehousing people. And the same thing with this, like, social distancing, lockdowns, and all this kind of stuff. We don't want to survive. We want to thrive. We want to live, right? And young people have a right to experience, life to its fullest, especially when they're young, because that's when you do it. That's why I know I don't have regrets. I talk to a lot of people, some older people, and like they're almost like they're lost because, they just did a thing, their whole life. And then they approach like a point of retirement or something like that. And suddenly they're, well, or maybe I'll do this or I'll do that or whatever. And I'm like, man, just retire, you sell your business, just live life, enjoy it. See, I don't care about any of that stuff because I did all that. I did everything when I was young. All right. So I'm out of that point. I don't, I traveled. I logged 100 some thousand air miles. I forget how many ridiculous amounts of air miles. Um, I had jobs in the cities when New York, LA, DC, Philly, and places like that, when they were, you know, fun, free places to live and you could do all kinds of things, and whether, so to me, that I had the experience. And I think that's what everyone should do, is experience life at a young age instead of out there with some kind of protest sign. We want this, or I want this, with a sourpuss on their face, not realizing that they can do whatever they want to do. They have senses. They could, it's like, find this little alcove here and sit on these rocks and listen to the sound of the surf, right? That's beauty. That's the beauty of nature. That's life. That's living. Watch a sunset, sunrise. Do whatever. Fall in love. Kiss a girl on St. Patrick's Day. Do whatever. Follow your bliss, as I said yesterday. Watch yesterday's show. Yesterday was a fun, uplifting show. I had to cut it short right towards the end because it's like I had a million things to do, and like I didn't turn the phone off because I was waiting for phone calls. If you watch the show, you'll do it, but it just kind of ends. But didn't leave you hanging because I kind of gave you a warning. It still was like an hour and 40 minutes long or something like that. And the show previous to that was also another one well worth. I thought it came together very well. So there are a lot of ideas discussed here, and that's what I'll continue to do that. I'll continue to try to, so we can make sense of all of this stuff together, formulate this. And as this show, I know what I was trying to say before, is the idea of I'm pushing this out in different areas. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you see like 9 views or something like that, it's like, I know from my analytics and from other areas where I'm pushing this show out, that I have, that there's more people, many more people listening, all right, and watching. And they're just not tied into into Google's analytics, or YouTube's analytics. So that's pretty much it. It's been an hour show. I'm going to have to make that decision whether or not we'll be, having some drinks and playing some music. I'll think about that over the next several hours. Keep an eye out, maybe check back sometime between 10 and 11. If I'm going to do it, it'll probably be between 10 and 11. So if I don't, I'll see you tomorrow. So, but anyway, thanks for watching. And if I don't talk to you in a couple hours, have a happy St. Patrick's Day, and try to find some way to have fun.
Good morning.
I'll talk to you either later or tomorrow. Cheers. Take care.